What's up guys, Ray here with another episode of This Is December, and following the theme of Mainstream Week, I'm here to talk to you about the mainstream 2001 anime Yu-Gi-Oh! So Yu-Gi-Oh! Was actually divided into two anime releases. The first one, which never got an English dub and is widely referred to as Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 in all Western countries pretty much, was quite dark and not very kid friendly. So the anime I'm going to be talking to you about today, because I'm kind of tired of doing non-kid friendly animes, is the second anime release that Yu-Gi-Oh! Got, which was entitled Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. But in Australia at least, it only got released as Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's what I'll be referring to it as. So before we get any further into this convoluted mess of a plot, let's get
off the tracks.
Yeah, spoiler warning, I should probably put that up now. I will be talking about at least a large sum of the plot of Yu-Gi-Oh! In this review, so yeah, if you haven't had a chance to watch it in the last 12 years, probably go watch that before you watch this review, because yeah, spoiler warning, just putting it out there. So like in the original anime, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters follows the everyday battles of ordinary high school student Yugi Moto. Except that he's not really that ordinary anymore, because he completed this ancient puzzle called the Millennium Puzzle, and so now his body is host to this ancient spirit, which is mysterious and everything, but it's later revealed that he's actually an Egyptian pharaoh. So joining Yugi in his everyday adventures are his four friends. We have Joey Wheeler, the hot-headed yet somehow reliable character who is about as useful as he is good at playing cards, which, spoiler alert, not very. Tristan Taylor, who is Joey's best friend, a dim-witted but lovable character who's always there when you need him. Taya Gardner, the love interest of the series and token female character for pretty much the entire show. And Bakura, who is a mysterious character who also possesses an ancient artifact known as the Millennium Ring. Therefore, his body also plays host to an ancient spirit from Egypt times. I think his is a grave robber, if I remember correctly. These characters are joined by other characters who I'll get to when I'm waddling through, again, this convoluted mess of a plot. Speaking of, let's get started on that. The English release of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was split up into several arcs throughout the entire series. The first one is, of course, the Jeweler's Kingdom arc, where we're introduced to the first big bad guy, known as Maximilian Pegasus. Pegasus actually steals the soul of Yugi's grandfather using his Millennium item, which is the Millennium Eye. He uses this as a bargaining chip against Yugi to force Yugi into competing in his Duel Monsters tournament on his island known as Jeweler's Kingdom. While there, we're introduced to several characters who will make regular appearances throughout the rest of the series, including what I would tentatively call the fifth protagonist, which is Seto Kaiba, a spoiled rich kid who owns a multi-billion-dollar company which pretty much runs the technological side of Duel Monsters, if I remember correctly. And he's pretty much the anti-hero of the series. He suffered a crushing defeat to Yugi in the first episode after some rather blatant misuse of the rules of Duel Monsters.
Screw the rules, I have money!
But now he's back and he's sort of on the side of good. Just, you know, not exactly following the letter of the law. He's kind of like Batman, I guess. The second arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was known as the Legendary Heroes. This arc actually starts when Seto Kaiba is actually forced by several executives from his company Kaiba Corp into a virtual machine world which is kind of based on Duel Monsters. And of course, because he's now stuck in there, and that was the plan of the executives all along to get Seto out of the picture, Yugi and his friends must obviously travel into the same virtual reality world to try and save Kaiba. Straight after that arc, we have the Dungeon Dice Monsters arc, where we're introduced to another main character known as Duke Javelin, who will eventually join Yugi and the rest of his gang in the next arc, I believe. Duke's actually really annoyed with Yugi because he believes that Yugi cheated in his game with Maximilian Pegasus. Otherwise, how else could Yugi have beaten the creator of Duel Monsters? So to try and get his revenge on Yugi, he actually challenges him to a game of his own choosing, which is Dungeon Dice Monsters, and they put the title King of Games on the line. I can't actually remember how that arc ended. I'm pretty sure it ended with Yugi beating Duke. Again, don't quote me on that, but Duke learns the power of friendship and eventually sees the light and again decides to join Yugi and all his friends on their path of righteousness. Next up was the Battle City arc. Now this was probably the largest arc of the entire series, if not the second largest, second only to Jewel's Kingdom. This is where Seto Kaiba actually discovers the existence of 3 Egyptian god cards for the game of Duel Monsters. Obviously these cards were based on the Egyptian gods and were so powerful that they were never really put into circulation, so there's only 1 copy of each card. Despite the fact that they were never put into circulation, that means that they're totally legal in the actual game. Don't ask me why. So in order to get all 3 of these cards into his possession, as well as defeat his long-term rival Yugimoto, Seto decides to host the Battle City tournament. The tournament will be held on the streets of Domino City, and there are special rules for the tournament, and everyone carries around pretty much a portable virtual reality machine so they can have holograms of the monsters fighting each other in the city streets. After the Battle City prelims have finished, we move on to the next arc, which is the Battle Ship. This is where the finals of the Battle City tournament take place. All the finalists gather on Kaiba's giant blimp. The finalists off the top of my head were Yugi, Joey, Seto, Marek, Bakura, Marek's butler, and Marek's sister, as well as Mai Valentine. I almost forgot about her. We're introduced to a new character again, Marek Ishtar, who I can't remember if he actually joins Yugi's group or not. I never actually watched that far into the anime, but yeah, he's pretty much the new antagonist, at least the obvious antagonist. He owns another Millennium item, which is the Millennium Rod, and again, his body plays host to an evil spirit, but eventually, halfway through this arc, his body actually breaks down, and so the evil spirit takes over his body, and he goes pretty much, well, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this or not, but he goes batshit insane. So yeah, that is the first 6 arcs I think I mentioned of Yu-Gi-Oh! That pretty much just spanned out 5 years on television, Nick and Channel 10 and all that stuff, and pretty much that's what the people of my generation had to grow up with when we weren't too busy watching Pokemon, Digimon, Dragon Ball Z. So, like I said, it is a bit of a convoluted mess of a plot, and I have done a rather brief job of explaining the characters, but now it's time to move on from this plot as we talk about the voice actors who give life to the characters in a segment called
The Good, the Bad, and the Dubbers.
So first up, Yugimoto and his alter ego Yami Yugi are voiced by Dan Green, who's also done such voices as Monkey D. Dragon in One Piece, whether that is the Funimation dub or the 4Kids dub, I'm not entirely sure. I think it was in the 4Kids dub. He also plays a character called Lee Pai Long in Shaman King, as well as Professor Birch in Pokemon. Joey Wheeler is voiced by Wayne Grayson, who also does the English voice for Akira Hattori from Bakuman, Cyrus Truesdale from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and Tsubaki Sadamitsu from Sadamitsu the Destroyer. Tristan Taylor started off being voiced by Sam Riegel, but Sam had to leave due to personal reasons, and so from episode 11 onwards, Tristan was voiced by Greg Abbey. Sam is known for his voice as Bucky in Naruto, as well as Minoru Shiraishi in Lucky Star, while Greg is actually known for his voices as Terry Kenyon from the English dub of Ultimate Muscle and Yusei Fudo from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Taya Gardner is voiced by Amy Birnbaum, who's also known for her voice roles as Max from Pokemon, Charmy the Bee from Sonic X, and Lily from Shaman King. Bakura and his alter ego Yami Bakura are voiced by Ted Lewis, who's also known for his roles as King Dedede from Kirby Right Back At Ya, Giovanni from Pokemon, and Jack Atlas from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Seto Kaiba is voiced by Eric Stewart, who's also known for his roles as James from Pokemon, Bastion Moana from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and Gory Gabri from Slayers. Finally, Marek and his alter ego Yami Marek are voiced by Jonathan Todd Ross, whose only other notable role is Kyoza from One Piece. So at the end of the day, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an okay anime. The plot made absolutely no sense, and the characters weren't exactly likable or rather relatable in my opinion, but it did introduce a new generation to anime about card games. There were several spin-offs of the series, some successful, some not so successful, and nearly every anime from then on has taken something from Yu-Gi-Oh! And tried to make it their own. So in a way, it has inspired new generations of manga artists in their endeavor to create a better story. Whether that is for the best or for the worst, it's entirely up to you. I give Yu-Gi-Oh! A 5 out of 9 vending machines. It was an okay series for me, and I remember loving it as I grew up, but it did seem to pad out just a tad too long, and it wasn't really that enjoyable to begin with, in my opinion. Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 was a much better anime, much shorter anime as well, but again, it was rather dark and it wasn't exactly the best show for kids, so which one you decide to watch depends on your personal taste. If you're looking for a family-friendly anime that nearly everyone in the family can enjoy, then probably go Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. If you're looking for something a little bit more adult-orientated, which you shouldn't really be showing kids, go for the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Anyway, that's all from me today. I'm Ray. This has been another episode of This Is. Catch you on the flip side.